The one thing I really wanted to talk about was just like how we've kind of, every blind hog finds its acorn, but just discovering product market fit has been interesting to me.
Finds its acorn.
Oh, whatever.
I like blind hog. Man.
Yeah, this is blind hog finds a truffle.
Keep that. I need that clip, please.
I'm like, I thought we were already rolling. I'm good if that goes out there.
Oh, man. All right.
All right. Kick us off, Colin. Tell us about the email you wrote a year ago to VCs.
Yeah, I'm back out in Silicon Valley right now, raising capital. And I was looking at some of my emails from exactly a year ago, November, December 2024. And just insane to see how much our company has evolved in a year timeline, seeing how I used to talk about our company and how we talk about it now. And I was sitting with Canisius today because we're just talking about how much velocity we have. I'm like, yeah, dude. I'm like, how long have you been here? He's like 7 months. It was like 2 years. Like just given how much we've accomplished. And I was like, holy shit, that's like only 7 months. That means the rest of our tech team has only been here, 3 months. 3 months. And so, today just kind of wanted to give a state of the union, not even a state of the union, but just a update on Collide and the progress that we made this year. And kind of what we have coming down the pipeline and looking forward in 2026. And I think that it's just such an interesting time. We run a forward deployed engineering model, which we can sit here and talk about for a minute. Palantir famously coined the term forward deployed engineer. And essentially, what it means is, we've productized 80% of our AI technology. And then as we move into clients, there's 20% that's custom implementation and integration. And it's our forward deployed engineers that are sitting there in our clients, taking our technology and applying it to our clients' workflows. And so those FDEs, they all have deep domain expertise from oil and gas, they're geophysicists, completions engineers, frac engineers, and just really understand the pain points. But I think what's so interesting, I think like the biggest development we've had over the last couple of months is we hired this guy, Sam Texas, and I hired him for 2 reasons. One, his name's Sam Texas. 2, he has a mullet. But he also just absolutely cracked out, extremely smart engineer. I think Sam's probably one of the smartest people in the world right now when it comes to using AI tools in software engineering. And I think that AI coding fundamentally changes the forward deployed engineering model. When Palantir had it, you had 2 teams. You had an Echo team and you had a Delta team. And their Echo team was their team of people with deep domain expertise. And they really kind of served in a customer success account manager function. And then their Delta team was their team of software engineers that could sit there and prototype really quickly. Well, AI tools are allowing us to prototype in a matter of hours, if that. And so you really don't need this team of dedicated software engineers for prototyping. You can just have your team of domain experts that come from oil and gas sitting there. And it's not like we're vibe coding. This is the thing that I think is really important to differentiate. I mean, this is production grade code. And, we've really built out these systems. Canisius, you and I were talking about this morning of kind of building out this sandbox. And so like the overarching theme that I want to talk about here is how we're not only building an AI first product, but our company is AI first, because all these companies are trying to become AI first or AI native. It's like, what the hell does that mean? What does that even mean? But we were talking about this morning, kind of talk about like some of the bigger companies that we talk to as friends, like other tech companies that we're trying to help become more AI native and like the challenges that they deal with.
Yeah, like I, through just within our network, I've been approached by a couple of different companies who are multi-billion-dollar companies or like getting pretty close. And all of them have kind of been like, okay, can you tell us what you did, how Collide is going through this process, and can you make us AI first? And my first question to them is always, what does AI first even mean to you? And I think all of these big companies are really struggling with the fact that they want to use all these tools, they read about all of that, but never understand how to really incorporate into their workflows. And one of my biggest learnings coming over to Collide was, I think if I didn't come over to Collide, it would have been the same thing for me. Because I was head of engineering for a multi-billion-dollar company, and this was all the same situation. the thing that these companies have to really do is, one, have the right mindset, but they need to also get that expertise and experience from the outside and integrate that. Because if you're just trying to build this within the company, especially bigger companies, there's no way, right? And one of the other light bulbs that went off for me was that earlier when I came in and joined Collide, and we were talking to a lot of these bigger companies and our clients and our AI first folks, I always felt that we were far behind, because they would all talk about, oh, we have our custom model, we have a fine-tuned. We were just talking about that in the morning, that somebody had said that they have a fine-tuned model. We were like, okay, what does that even mean?
Saying that they have a proprietary model, and it's just a series of instructions to a general foundation model. And
yeah. And now when we talk to these companies, we can go to such depth and really realize that all of these companies are simply just using out of the box, very minimal ChatGPT prompts and all these other things to just go through, parse their data to do these workflows, which is just never how they will scale. So a question I used to be scared of, which a lot of these companies are now getting scared of, is that they get compared to, how are you better than ChatGPT, right? Or Copilot. We just can very definitively showcase those things. And whenever I talk to any of these big companies that are now approaching us, nobody's asking that question of us anymore. That's been the other big
It's pretty funny.
switch.
That's actually a progression that we talk about. Chuck, you remember when we first started doing sales at the beginning of the year, and it was me and you convincing people that we weren't just two podcast bros. So hey, that's how Chuck started every sales pitch. Hey, look, we're not just two podcast bros. We got some software developers, and it's just like convincing people that we weren't grifting, selling AI.
Well, you know what, to take it out of the technology realm and to give an analogy of this, if you think about kind of how software built up over time, you basically divided the enterprise into silos. You created finance, you created human resources, you created operations, et cetera. And if you're an existing player in any of those, you drill down into that silo, if you will. And the actual benefit of AI is to be able to pull all of that stuff together to automate those workflows and cut across there. And as simple as that sounds, that's a huge mindset change. If you're an application that does just safety, well, how does that integrate with finance, et cetera? And I think that's part of the change that people are struggling with when they're thinking this through.
Well, even to drill that down specifically for oil and gas, you look at upstream, you have drilling, completions, production, accounting, land, whatever it may be, reservoir, and all of these are siloed on different tech stacks, data, tribal knowledge within them. And so
let me give you a perfect example. We were talking to an oil and gas company, and potentially we're going to build this workflow for them. If you're drilling a well, what are you incentivized to do? Drill it as fast as possible, as cheap as possible, right? Well, what's really interesting is if you come down and you drill, and let's say you geosteer a little bit out, the driller wants to get back in zone as quick as humanly possible, hit the target, where if you would actually pause for, call it 12 hours, you could figure out a more gradual way to get back in zone. Because the kink in drilling that lateral right there is going to cost you $500,000 or $1 million over the lifetime of the well, changing out pumps.
Call those kinks doglegs. And when you drill, you don't give a shit about doglegs because that's not your problem.
Exactly. But production pays the cost of those doglegs.
What's funny is that was the mindset I had when I had roughnecked on rigs and drilled wells. And then when I started running expandable casing, I'd have to try to work expandable casing down these doglegs. And I'm just like, that's when I started seeing it, because I was like, the drilling guys don't give a damn. That's not their problem. But an
AI native drilling plan, that's an easy rule to follow. Minimize doglegs, and create incentives for that driller to minimize the doglegs. Yeah.
One quick point that I wanted to kind of make on the AI transformation. I do think that one thing we did really well this year, and I think maybe Colin, you can give more examples of how we went through this journey, was really change management. Because I think as much as AI, this talk about AI, unless you don't have the right expertise and you're willing for your team to switch that's the biggest competitive advantage we have, right? That our team fully switched, and it was that change management that we had to sit in the middle of for a couple of months of just working that way through, which I imagine when we talk to our clients, right? Like Todd, you have probably seen that, right? It's really the change management piece that will make an
Todd's done a great job leading that initiative, but I'll tell a story real quick about one of our clients, because it's one of my favorite clients. And why they're a favorite client of mine is because there's like no hype around AI. Like no hype. Remember the first time we went to sell them, like when our first product was like well search, being able to search across well files, find information really quickly. CEO's like, I don't think there's any value in that. And like just shut me down. I was like, okay, well, other EMPs say that. Like, I think that there's value in it. And he's like, no, there's no value in that. And they call us back like 2 months later, and we go there, same thing, just like not a lot of like, it's a little bit like foreign territory for me because there was like no hype and like they weren't excited about it. And I'm like, man, we got to learn how to navigate this. And there's an older guy in the room. He's like, could y'all help us automate our regulatory filings? I was like, Todd's like, yeah, I think we can. And we started doing that for him. And now 3 weeks ago, they officially filed their regulatory filings with the Texas Railroad Commission with 100% acceptance rate using Collide. And in that, it took an engineer 6 hours manually to do that. Took Collide, call it 30 seconds, whatever it was. It's going to save them probably 1,000 engineering hours over a year. And now they're all in and leaned in, and to the point where, they want to be communicating this to their investors of how they're using AI, which they should. Every company, I talked to the CMP the other day. They sold their EMP, big transaction. Him and the core team are starting up another EMP, private equity backed. And he's like, yeah, I was at this, IT happy hour, and guy comes up to me. He's like, what's y'all's AI strategy? He's like, I just rolled my eyes. He's like, dude, I don't have a fucking AI strategy. What are you talking about? It's like, but then I went home. He's like, I started thinking about it. He's like, what is our AI strategy? He's like, and I listened to a podcast with you and Chuck. And he's like, my gears just started turning about all the work that I do that is so tedious. And he's like, man, I bet we could automate this and automate that. And I think people are going to start to have this realization that, one, investors are going to be asked, like, using AI isn't going to be optional. Like, if you want to be fundable, you have to be thinking about how you're using AI. And I hate using the term of using AI because what the hell does that actually mean? I hate, like, you go into a company like, oh yeah, we're using AI. Like, what does that actually mean? Like, here we sell outcomes, right? And workflows, and however we make that sausage, we don't really care. I don't care if it's AI or a group of, 50 people in a back room, that just sitting there crunching numbers. And clients, they don't care. They just care about the output. But, I think a couple of things on that change management process, and Todd has done a really good job of this. So we started standing up our FDE team this year, probably, I don't know, 4 months ago.
Yeah, literally 2 months ago.
Yeah, we were talking about it for a while, but
just
we started almost 2-3 months ago, not longer than that.
Yeah, and you look at, we have 3 FTEs right now. We have John. John is, 15 years, oil and gas, mechanical engineer, MBA, frac engineer for a long time. Turns out, frac engineers that deal with a lot of downhole data are also just good in data. And I put John, John's been here with us for, I think, almost 3 years now. And it's so funny to me because John, we've been building RAG since RAG was invented. And I put John up against some of the best quote unquote AI engineers that I've talked to when it comes to data pipelines and things of that nature. And you have Nick. Nick was a geophysicist, turned software engineer at Chevron, spent 6 years there building out internal applications, deploying them across teams. And you have Michael. Michael's 20 years, completion engineer. He's at BHP, a couple of EMPs at Halliburton. He was at Corva. And like, you get these guys, like, how much better has that made our job and our company?
You can start seeing the light bulb moment for our FDE team was actually taking and extending all the data pipelines, being able to take the application that's been built in deliver something like tangible, like real outcomes in a matter of, we'll call it weeks right now. And so it's funny to see kind of their light bulb go off. They can kind of build out, entire workflows, taking all the frac data in a state, creating insights from that. And now seeing customers and that light bulb go off for customers, we're seeing those champions kind of switch into, oh, now I can go and talk to my accounting team and talk to my land team and figure out all these kind of typical, I would say, manual processes, communication back and forth, and actually deliver something that's not just on one data set, but across an organization. That's been
my favorite thing? My favorite thing about recruiting people for our FDE team, since it's all people with deep oil and gas domain expertise, it's so easy to recruit them because you show them what Collide can do, and they're like, "Holy shit!" Like, I wasted so much of my life doing that, and so they just like buy into it.
Well, I'm actually going to do a podcast probably next week to the core question of what is our AI strategy. And I'm going to throw this out here and all three of y'all opine on this. And remember that I'm very delicate, so don't be mean. But no, because I originally thought search was going to be the greatest thing on the planet. Because when I was at Kane, we would look at, in effect, huge data sets of wells and why were 8 of these 200 wells good. And if you could figure that out, then you could piece together the play. And that's what we did. And that's how we made money. And I was like, man, AI is going to do that on steroids. And I think that's right. But the way to get there, and so if I were a CEO, my AI strategy would be, number one, automate my workflows, literally generate an ROI on every one of these things, filing the regulatory filings, et cetera, go from 2,000 hours a year to 20 minutes, boom, give me my ROI, because that drives change management. People get used to running the software. But the real home run, I think, is changing those engineers' mindsets from automating a workflow to something way more creative and unengineering, like I'll give an example of, I know if I can find this signature on a log combined with this production profile, I know they grossly understimulated that field. I can buy that field at PDP, PV10, do refracts and make 10 times my money. That pattern recognition into the future on big things is what's going to allow oil and gas to be cool again.
Yeah, well,
like wildcat or like.
Chuck, to your point, you and I understand the value of search, but I think that the value of search will be extremely valuable long tail in the future as you get all of your data in there. But then as people learn how to use these systems as a thought partner as well. And this is where that change management and like user behavior change comes. And this is like a material mindset shift. I'll tell you an example of me using Grok a couple of weeks ago. I woke up one Saturday morning. I was like, hey, I want to build a GPU cluster at our office. And I started asking, I told Grok what I wanted to use it for. We had some data. We're fine tuning a model right now. The shameless plug, that's already performing every foundation model on petroleum engineering test and task. And it's our first stab at it. And so I was reading Jasmia. Jasmia is one of our AI engineers, super smart engineer. Actually worked on ChatGPT's reinforcement learning team while she was at Microsoft. And I read her paper that she wrote on this first pass of fine tuning. And I was like, okay, we can do this up in the cloud using A100, H100 GPUs. I said, but I wonder if I just built our own GPUs at our office, what that could do. So I sat there on a Saturday morning. I woke up at like 6 a.m., like 2 hours. It's just me talking back and forth with Grok. Hey, I uploaded our paper. Here's our results. Here's how long it took us to train. Here's what the costs were. Here's what we're trying to accomplish. And it started giving me a list of different GPUs, NVIDIA GPUs, and it put me onto the Blackwell 6000 because at first it was giving me kind of like consumer grade GPUs. And I was like, no, hey, I'm willing to spend some money. He's like, oh, okay, if you're willing to spend some money, you should get this one. And anyways, woke up that morning with the idea, used Grok as a thought partner, had really good performance and cost analysis across A100s, H100s, and our own GPUs. I went and spent the 20 grand that night, bought the parts. 3 days later, we had the beginning of the cluster built here.
And what you just did, the analogy I make to that is the beginning of the shale revolution. The successful engineers in the beginning of the shale revolution were actually not the great established engineers, because they were so rooted in convention that they just couldn't wrap their head around, why should we use fine mesh sand to frack, source rock? It's not going to work. But it was the people that said, screw it, let's try. And it's the people that say, with data, screw it, let's try, i.e. running search, finding correlations, figuring out, is there actually causation to it, are going to be the people that really benefit from AI and have the step function higher.
Funny anecdotal story. I posted a picture. So our GPU cluster is called Spindletop. And I posted a picture of Spindletop on Twitter, and someone from a major service company is like, it's like, oh yeah, we're speccing out doing this, but we're worried about constraints with the single socket CPU like you have on that Threadripper. We're looking at double socket and all of this. And I was like, yeah, difference between me and you is that you're going to spec this out for 6 months when you're one of the biggest service companies. What does it cost you to go spend $50K doing something? I just woke up and did it.
And then you texted Jimmy and said, we need a surge protector.
Got Jimmy's server over there building this thing. It was good. But through that, the iterative learning that you get, it's led to me developing this thesis of, me and Sam were talking about this in Slack the other day. The majority of inference is going to happen on device. And so I'm actually a little bit bearish against this CapEx trade in AI where you're spending billions and billions of dollars building these centralized data centers, because the majority of compute and inference is actually going to happen on device. You look at my Tesla, it's computing right there. You can't have any latency when you're doing self-driving. It's got a GPU on board. It's going to happen on phones. It's going to happen on glasses. It's going to happen on your computer. And we're just getting smarter on the inference layer, controlling our own compute and hosting our models on it, training our models on it. And those are the collective learnings that allow us to get better and our engineering team to get better. And, talking about our engineering team and our FDE team, I want to talk about this because our team's this is the thing I like talking about most. Like, I think we've built a fucking stud team and I'm just incredibly proud of it. I go out to Silicon Valley last year, talking to a top tier fund, like, Colin, we love you. We think this is one of the biggest opportunities in AI, but you got to increase your software DNA. And to be fair, we didn't even have a single full-time software developer on. It's like me,
Todd,
John.
you were it.
Todd wasn't even full-time. It's like me, like 10 hours a week from Todd. It's John, it's Julie, and Chuck. And so very fair, very fair critique. Like I'm not mad about it. And then, off the back of that, they didn't believe that I could go recruit the best AI talent and tech talent. And, first we got Canisius, and I had to convince Canisius to be stupid enough to leave his head of engineering job at a multi-billion-dollar platform to come here and build with us. And he was crazy enough to do it. And then that starts compounding. I wouldn't have been able to convince all of these engineers to come over if you didn't have someone of Canisius's caliber. But then that led to, we have some great young talent and Stefan and Jimmy, and then bringing over Mark and Clay from, this is what's great about someone like Canisius is Canisius has 20 plus years in the industry, and you get to leverage his network and bring in the best engineers that he knows. And so, bringing those guys over, and then our AI engineers, John Slow was 7 years at AWS. He's an expert in agentic orchestration and was actually deployed in oil and gas companies, actually worked at Devon straight out of school for computer science. I don't know if there's a smarter person at the intersection of AI and oil and gas than John on our team. Then you bring Jasmia, and Jasmia is just subject matter expert in reinforcement learning, worked at Microsoft, as I mentioned earlier. And it's funny how the tone has changed from, hey, we don't think that you can go recruit the best engineers. I was in San Francisco 2 weeks ago, and they're like, how the hell are you convincing AI engineers from Seattle at Microsoft to come work in oil and gas? And I have a couple answers for that. One is people want to work on real problems. Do you as an AI engineer, do you want to go work on a new note-taking app, or do you want to go solve the world's energy crisis? Kind of easy decision there, right? But then two is high density talent. It's like a black hole. It's got this gravitational pull, and the best of the best want to come work with the best of the best. And so this just compounds over time. And so, now the reactions, I have a lady coming in today that I'm recruiting, think super highly of her, very seasoned petroleum engineer. And her response is like, your team is fucking stacked. and that's like the best compliment I could ever get.
And I think it's fair to say, right? Like even Sam on our team, right? An AI engineer.
I forgot to mention Sam. Yeah, Sam.
I
mentioned him earlier.
Yeah.
Avid listener of Chuck Job podcast.
Exactly.
And that's how we found him.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. Can we tell this story real quick? Because I want everyone to understand the power of content. Sorry to interrupt you, Canisius, but this is important.
No, this is why I wanted to kind of plug in Sam, because I think it's powerful to talk about. Sam
lives over in Sweden. Actually grew up in Houston, but he's been in Sweden for 11 or 12 years now. He was a CTO of a healthcare startup. He was at Candy Crush managing site reliability teams, which when you're at Candy Crush, that's a real, that's a real thing. Yeah.
It's real stuff.
Yeah. And anyways, I get a message from Chuck one day. He's like, hey, this guy reached out to me on the pod, and anytime,
like on Twitter, I think.
Yeah. Anytime Chuck sends me something, it's like, sometimes I pay attention to it, sometimes I don't. But I click on his LinkedIn profile and I'm like, damn, this guy actually seems legit. And I get on a phone call with him, and me and Sam just hit it off and vibed. And anyways, I flew him over here and talked to him. And anyways, fast forward nearly a year later, and we're talking about our team, and I tell Canisius, I'm like, man, this guy, he was researching oil and gas stocks and looking for oil and gas information, and he came across Chuck's podcast. And this is in the early days of Collide when we start talking about AI, and Sam just got it. He's like, man, you got the content and the community and in the AI. And anyways, Sam has been a huge addition to our team, and that came from Chuck's oil and gas podcasts of him telling whatever stupid jokes he's telling.
God knows what I was talking about.
But the content is amazing, both from recruiting side to customers. Like almost every time we go into a conversation with the customer, it's like, oh, I saw Colin or Chuck on a podcast, and that got me thinking. And here we are talking about AI and what we can do and like deliver outcomes. It's amazing to see the response.
Dude, I need you to talk about this a little bit, because to shape up this, to preface this, Todd, been in energy 20 years.
Yeah, about
20 years. Todd's done everything from, working at Chevron. He founded and sold a startup in energy. He's one of the leading subject matter experts on CCUS and built a consulting business around that. All that to say is Todd has seen a lot. Like, I think if you draw a Venn diagram of oil and gas domain expertise, software experience, and then like commercial / startup experience, like Todd may be the only guy that kind of fits across all three of those. So you've seen a lot. And Todd, I know when you came over here, like you just saw that our distribution was
distribution is amazing. Like you start talking to any customer, essentially any oil and gas. I'll throw in almost any oil field service company, and we probably have at least 2 to 3 contacts and relationships, not just like people we know, but contacts at those companies where we can go in and at least have that initial conversation, which is so unique. And you throw in obviously Chuck's relationships, your relationships, Jonathan's, John's, and now all of a sudden you're talking about distribution across upstream, midstream, downstream, and it's like, well, the opportunity is huge.
I remember it was like a couple months ago, Chuck's like, yeah, man, we're in this sales meeting and CEO barges in, it's one of the largest private companies. CEO barges in. It's like, oh my gosh, Chuck, I listened to your podcast. Can I take a picture? And Todd's like, dude, I was there. It's true.
I witnessed the whole thing. It was great. Stop the meeting. Walk in. Oh, Chuck, let me get the selfie. It was great.
That was very Dave Grohl-ish. That was cool.
But you know what's funny about that is, you know, we chewed glass building this. Like, you know what's hard is bootstrapping a media business. And media businesses are actually really shitty to operate because it's just like, I have a lot of respect for people that grow and operate media businesses because they're challenging. It's not a very repeatable thing. But the thesis is that, hey, you could build community with content. And I thought content was the highest form of leverage of our generation. And so, hey, we'll use podcasts, we'll use events to build community, and then use community as your distribution. You know, it's so funny. If you ever get on Twitter, there's two camps in tech. It's team product or team distribution. And some people think that, oh, you build a world-class product, people will come use it. Other camp thinks, and there's like a running joke. It's like second-time founders or first-time founders focus on product, second-time founders focus on distribution. We built our company backwards. We spent years building distribution and then focused on building a world-class product to go distribute. But it's been so cool to just see that vision come to life. And I think that really it hasn't even been until like the last 2 months that I'm like, oh shit, this is what I wrote about in that original paper years ago. You know, we had a team on site and we're sitting there. I think it was John Slow and Jasmine. Like, we had an idea in real time, and then John Slow and Jasmine are going back and forth. I just sat back and I was like, I feel so grateful to be sitting here with these people. Also, best part of being an entrepreneur is, hey, if I want to learn about reinforcement learning, cool. I'm just going to go hire one of the smartest people in the world on it, and I'm just going to learn everything about reinforcement learning from them. But to see that, and Chuck, I think you even had that feedback. We're sitting there on that team meeting and you sat back, you're like, look at this is real. Like, you used to be us sitting around scratching, you know, I won't say the comment on the podcast, but
we're an enterprise software company now. Let's keep it to that.
I was laughing. We use Granola AI notes for all of our note taking here. And they did this Granola Crunch, which is like Spotify Wrap, where it gives you a year-end recap. And all of ours had some comments about Chuck. It's like Chuck begrudgingly talking about his new role as AI salesman, or it's like Chuck's most likely to sell a feature that doesn't exist.
Whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, I think what's really exciting, I was talking to Canisius about this morning, is I think 2026 is the year of scaling for us. You know, when we came into this year, there were a couple things that we really had to prove out. You know, the first was, like we talked about, increasing our software DNA. Hey, we're a group of smart, scrappy oil and gas people, but we really need to get enterprise software DNA in here. Boom. We went and knocked that out of the park. Then is building the platform and the technology. Canisius has a chart that he likes to show. Every time he pulls it out, I think he's talking shit, but he's like, this is our architecture when I joined. This is what our architecture is now. He flexes.
The funny thing about that is when he pulls out the before photo, I actually understand that. The after photo, I don't understand. So you must have done something.
And where we're at now, still, like where we're going to be at the end of this month, I mean, we are just first off, the rate, the velocity that we have and the rate of change here is absolutely insane. I mean, it'll rip your face off. And where our platform is going to be at the end of December is just absolutely amazing on the things that we're doing with our backend data pipelines and agentic orchestration and fine-tuned models. And so that's what a lot of this year was about, was building up world-class team and getting our platform to where it's scalable. I'll say the third thing is coming into this year was looking at the community platform on Collide. You know, I got comments from top tier VC last year, and they're like, Colin, is this community? Is it real? Like, we get on there and there's not a lot of engagement. And pretty much my response is like, hey, I know that's what it looks like, but you have to trust me, bro. Like, I know this. Like, I know the industry needs this, but that doesn't answer. That's not a good answer to VCs, right? And so we came into this year and it's like, hey, we really have to prove out, like, we know as oil and gas experts that the industry needs this and that the community needs it and that it's really important. And we need to prove that out. And we set some goals to define if we proved that out or not. And we did it, and we crushed it. And now I just see how much value the community is getting from it and how much it's growing. And it makes me really happy. And, to give Todd some credit here, I was in an engineering firm and I was telling them about Collide, telling them about the community. And at the end of it, this is a room of like 15 engineers in there. This guy's like, he's like, Colin, he's like, you're talking about the community. And he's like, as you're talking about it, I went and logged on. He's like, I'm gonna tell you, he's like, I joined a year and a half ago, and he like paused. I was like, hey dude, I know it was shitty. He's like, yeah, it wasn't good. And the technology sucked. We'd built it MVP off of no code using Bubble. God, dude, you go tell that to John. John like gets NAM flashbacks. And there was no engagement. And I'm very thankful for the people that were in the community at that time that just really believed in the vision and got it. And we're trying to like push through the shitty technology. And this is when we got Todd involved. This is probably like 18 months ago.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, year and a half. Yeah.
And Todd started working with us as a contractor, him and a few other engineers, and built our Collide community full stack. And dude, that was a big commitment for us at that time. Like putting as much money as we had to put into building that. And we didn't plan on there was no plan of monetizing this. It was just the industry needs this, and we're going to do it. And we think that this is core to our community and our platform. And now you look at it, and building network platforms is incredibly hard. It's incredibly hard. You always have chicken and the egg problems. How do you get people on there? How do you get them engaged? And what was interesting is we had people that wanted to engage, but the technology sucked and wouldn't allow them to engage. And Todd came in here and built up that platform, got it to where it was usable. And now we've iterated to where the technology is good now. And you look at it, you go on there and people are having great conversations. People are getting value out of it. Got an email the other day. Someone's like, hey, someone hooked me up with a fuel supplier. Can I send them 500 watts to pay them for their time? Like people are using the points and watts that they're getting in Collide as a form of currency. And that, I'll tell just, I don't really tell this very often, but we launched Collide Community 3 times. I think the first time was in 2021. We used a white label app, Circle. I paid $8,000 a year for it. And I got people to sign up for it. I was like, okay, cool. People want this. But again, the app and the technology was shit. It was white label. You couldn't change anything either. And then it's like, okay, well, we got enough here. Let's build our own app. And so we built it with Bubble. And fuck, dude, just hindsight, I wish we wouldn't have done that. But I remember like there's videos of me launching at an Energy Tech Night. Or we launched it first at Horseshoe Bay event that we did. Then we launched it like a year later. We launched it 3 times before it took off. You know how stupid you have to be to try to launch something like over a span of 3 or 4 years before it gains traction. And anyways, I'm just, and shout out to Crystal and Julie on our team for cultivating that community, and Sydney and Misty. Like it takes so many parts and components to get to where we're at now. And I think 2026 is really the year of us scaling. We have the platform where we're enterprise ready on our AI to go deploy this into companies. We got good technology on the community side. We're leveraging the community. What's so interesting is you have all these big AI companies like Scale AI that do data labeling, and they sell this to the large model providers. When I go recruit AI engineers from those companies, they see our community like, man, you have all this community of subject matter experts from oil and gas. You could be using them for data labeling and QC feedback for your reinforcement learning. So, there's a selfish reasoning too for building this community app. Not only does the industry need it and it's going to help a lot of people, but we're also going to be able to leverage it. I've got an AI engineer that we're going to hire in Q1. I recruited him off of Collide. I sent him a message on Collide. And so we get something from it as well. But it's just so cool to see all of these things coming together. And 2026 is really going to be the year that we scale. And it's just a fun time.
Just to add some color to that, and correct me where I'm wrong, but I think, and this is dynamic, it's changing every minute. I think we have 12 clients today doing 17 different things. with Collide Enterprise AI software. And I bet by the end of the first quarter, we're at 25 or 30 clients doing 35, 40, 45 different things with Collide Enterprise. And so that to me is ultimately, we can talk and about upgrading software DNA and all this stuff. That's kind of the proof's in the pudding.
Yeah. And you we rewind a little bit. Maybe this summer we delivered 1 or 2 POCs a month. Let's call it that. December, we're probably going to deliver between 8 and 10 proof of concepts where we can actually get customer validation on that. And now you start going into Q1, it's like, what can that number be? Is that it's not 8 and it's maybe close to 20? Like, we're going to get at a velocity that's just the industry hasn't seen.
One of the things I'm most proud of is we built the technology to scale up and down the market. Like, I'm not interested in just building enterprise grade software for the biggest clients out there. It's the mom and pops that need AI more than anyone. I mean, they're getting squeezed, whether you're an EMP, OFS, and guess what? Silicon Valley's not coming to save them. They don't even know they exist. Silicon Valley doesn't even know the big companies exist. We have a mom and pop company, I think 2 engineers, 1,000 wells, and we're building workflows that are saving them hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that means everything. If you can put that money back to their bottom line. And so that's a really big thing to me, is that we've been able to build.
And the most important thing there is, if you ask them right now, they'll tell you, man, 5 handle on oil price. Not sure my family's eating tomorrow, but if we go chop $300,000-$400,000 out of their cost structure, that's a nice living.
Which this actually gets me to a point, is the most pressing issue that the world faces right now is an energy crisis. Over 1 billion people live in energy poverty. We know this in the industry. We talk about it all the time. But now people are subscribing to the belief that, energy demand is going to continue to increase. I've been talking about this for years. You look at every energy demand forecast that's out there, it's wrong. They'd have us plateauing by 2050. It's like, you have all these secular drivers. You have high performance computing, which, mind y'all, we were doing Bitcoin mining content and events before the data center AI rush. We knew this was coming, so we talked about it all the time. You have electrification, you have emerging nations, and then you have space colonization, which is space colonization is growing exponentially. The payload, the cost per pound of or kilogram of payload is just going down exponentially. And so you look at all these drivers, energy demand has the potential to scale infinitely. And that's a good thing for society. And it's our community and our AI that is going to enable that. And you talk about increasing the margin and allowing these oil and gas companies to operate at cheaper prices. It actually brings down your break-even cost of, hey, maybe that true break-even cost was $60, $65 a barrel, but now it's $40 a barrel, maybe $35 a barrel, because we've changed that cost structure.
And lower price spurs more demand. So
yeah. I honestly believe what we're building here has the potential to change macro economics of energy, and I think is
on
just
par
really
with
important.
what the shale revolution did. I believe that. I'm not just talking my own book here.
Yeah, 100%. Look, dude, you were there. I was there. Dude, I was a fucking angry 19-year-old kid out in West Texas. Like, fuck yeah, dude, we're dethroning Saudi. You had Chuck cutting the checks, and you had cracked out kids like me drilling the wells out there. And that changed. That changed the global stage. And I believe that this technology is on par to do that as well. And it's about the people in the industry that are I think another thing here is the people at the companies that we're working with. Think of I don't want to name any names, but just unbelievable forward-thinking engineers that get it and see what the future potential of this technology is going to allow them to do and allow their companies to do, and is really grateful that there are those types of people in the industry. And I think that we'll look back on this 10 years from now and see it as on par to what Shale did in the transition from conventional to unconventional. I do think that it's that material.
Let's do this since we probably are going to get yelled at by Crystal on time. Kind of the exit question, if you will. What do we need to do next year?
Scale. That's the one thing.
A brevity of words. Go ahead and flush that out.
So yeah.
So how are we going to do that? And somebody out in the community that potentially wants to call and talk AI software, what are they going to get?
Yeah, like I think as Colin mentioned previously, that we did invest a lot of this year just hiring really good talent, setting the foundation of our technology, and also figuring out distribution, right? Like you guys already had a lot of distribution. That was one of the reasons I joined. But now we are also at the right cross-section of having those champions who have really turned the corner. So I think for us now, it's really going to be how quickly can we produce the POCs and how quickly can we then put them into production, right? True production. And I think that cycle time, I really do believe is just going to continue to shrink because of us truly being an AI first community. And we've had these conversations, and even if happy to actually start a series even on the community, right? Like just posting more about these things, or if people want to kind of call in, and happy to kind of set that time. But yeah, I think that's going to be our biggest unlock as well, right? Because we can get to production, get to POCs fairly quickly, and really start going from 2 or 3 clients to hundreds of clients and applications within the next year.
Yeah, and I would kind of extend that, maybe a different slant on it, but kind of scaling the value so that as we start thinking about the POCs that we're delivering, then proving out those outcomes and seeing exactly what value we can deliver for each customer and each kind of opportunity. That to me is where you start looking at these larger EMPs that have billion-dollar line items and where we can go and chip away at that. That's exciting, right? We can basically have a forward deployed engineering team, have the backing of true software engineers, and actually deliver not just incremental value. We're talking like taking chunks out of the financial statement to see true value delivered on each POC.
Kenesha said it with brevity of scaling, but I think that scaling actually has probably 3 facets to it. One is from a technical engineering perspective, 2 is from a commercialization sales perspective, and then the 3rd is from a financing perspective. And so, we've talked about it already here, but made a huge capital investment in our team this year, getting world-class talent to build our platform where it's ready to scale. Boom, we're at that point. If anyone's listening to this, where we're going to grow on our team is in our forward deployed engineering team. We're going to be constantly looking for the smartest people from oil and gas and energy as a whole. Bonus points if you have some Python and software development experience. I'm actually thinking with our system that we're building that you actually don't need a ton of experience there. Maybe none at all, but bonus points if you have that. That's where we're going to really look for people. Going from where it took us, months to do a POC to where it's taking us a couple of weeks. The second one, sales and commercialization. This industry, it's hard getting your first client. And once you get your first client, the second one comes easier, third comes easier. We're deployed in multiple companies now, and that pipeline's huge. And so, what's funny is like we started getting ahead of sales, and I always use Chuck's analogy of like a water balloon, but it's like you push here and it pops out over here, and then you go push in over here. And so you always have this tension between sales and engineering and deliverability. But, we're doing this really quickly. Just an anecdotal story of, I want people that are listening to understand where the world's going. 2 of our engineers, so Nick, forward deployed engineer, he's driving in his Tesla and it's self-driving. Okay. So the AI is driving him. He's got his laptop pulled out. He's got Sam on the phone with him on a Zoom call from around the world in Sweden. And they took one of our prototypes and productionized it in the time that it took Nick to drive across Houston. So they actually, Sam measured the steps of doing this. He said it took from Beltway 8 to 290 to get this part done, and from 290 to Highway 6 to get this part done. This is the future. Like this is the future, and this is how quickly AI allows you to work and how it enables you. Think about telling someone 2 years ago Oh yeah, I was in my full self-driving car on my laptop with someone around the world, and we used AI to develop a production grade app in 30 minutes. Like what the fuck? Crazy time that we're living in right now. The third part is the financial aspect. We've been very fortunate. We've raised $14 million to date. We're venture capital backed. $11 million of that has come from angel investors. You have, Chuck here. I don't know if I've ever given Chuck credit on air, but someday I'll write a book and I'll talk about, Chuck changed my life and probably saved my life. Chuck was cutting $500K checks when there was no technology. There was no business model.
Dude, the screwed up thing is when I let you have a crawfish boil at my house. Make payroll. 500,000 is easy.
Chuck's like, I don't even care about the checks that I cut. He's like, you guys barfed on my third story.
The Denver podcasters, and you know who you are, staying up on my third floor. Yeah.
And we have just an amazing investor base of the who's who of oil and gas, and just very fortunate because when you're a startup in Houston, Silicon Valley's not looking at you, especially when you're in oil and gas. 2 years ago, no one gave a shit about oil and gas. Now they're beating down our door. But 2 years ago, no one cared. And so I've been very fortunate that we've had an investor base of angels that have allowed us to get to the point where we're at now, but now we're scaling. And this is a capital intense platform that we're building. Building enterprise software is extremely challenging. We can't be at 80% on these systems. We have to be at 100%, especially in an industry where you're making capital decisions, in the hundreds of millions, billions of dollars based on, decisions that our systems are going to be making, or you make a decision that could potentially kill 5 people on a rig. This is serious work that we're doing, and we take it very seriously, and it's a capital intensive technology and platform to build. And so, we're going out to Silicon Valley now. We're going to go raise $25 million in our Series A. And, we'll probably raise $100 million over the next couple of years, which is funny because you tell oil and gas people this, like $100 million isn't shit. I'm like, well, it's a lot in the tech world. And we're at that point now. Mercury Fund invested in us nearly a year ago and got us to that point where we're institutional grade now, and we have the ability to go raise those dollars. And so when Kenesha says scale, that's really how I look at it. I look at it from the technology perspective, from the commercialization perspective, and from the financing perspective. And that's what this upcoming year is about for us.
So what I think this upcoming year is going to be about is, 3 years ago, we would talk about AI and I would whip up some wild story just to get attention, right?
Yeah.
To lo and behold, some of that actually has come true. And I think now, over the last course of the year, I am now taken seriously on we can automate workflows. I think next year I will actually be taken seriously on Collide is going to be the agent in charge of all your agents within the oil and gas business. And so that Collide window pane is going to be how you, the oil and gas person, in effect directs 100, I'll say 100%, but let's say 80% of your workflows on a daily basis.
Yeah. No, Collide will be the operating system.
And I'll be taken seriously when I said it. Now I get an eye roll or what are you talking about? But I think that's
there's a large company that we're talking to that does billions and billions of dollars of revenue, and they articulated that without us saying it. And so I think that the industry is already getting to that point. But yeah, I agree with you is that where last year we were having to convince people that we weren't podcast bros. Next year we won't have to convince people of that either.
Exactly.
So, but one thing just to kind of end this out, I'm just really thankful for, our team, for our community, for our investors. It takes a lot of different components. And, yesterday alone in Slack, I shared 3 posts that I saw from LinkedIn, people talking about Collide. And I could not be more grateful or stoked to have people that we have in our community supporting this. And so, our first core value at Collide is community over everything. And, just really thankful that we get the opportunity to work with the amazing people that we do. So, with that said, 2026 is going to be a big year for us, and we're running 1,000 miles an hour. And, I'm sure the update that we have in a few months will make this one look pretty antiquated and old. So let's get after it.